Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Thunder, and this is Case Closed. And you're in for a really good show. We've got an all-star panel, as is usual. In today's show, criminal charges will help Trump in 2024. Criminal charges will help Trump in 2024. Is it a good idea to charge a former president? Legalities aside, do you think that Trump tried to overturn the election? Do you think Trump believes that the election was actually stolen, rigged? Did we get bamboozled? Will the recent charges boost Trump's popularity? Do you think that any of the charges will stick? Can they prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Trump knew he lost and knowingly tried to defraud the American state? And why was Trump not directly charged with inciting an insurrection? Make sure you like the video, like, share, comment, subscribe, become a channel member where you'll get access to all archived videos, support black male media, support independent media, super chats enabled, super thanks for the replay gang, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, Dr. Thunder, music, all one word. Spell out the word doctor. If you'd like to buy me a sandwich, then shoot me a Cash App, hashtag sandwich gang, sandwich gang, sandwich gang, sandwich gang. Say that 10 times fast. And if you didn't know it, sandwich is spelled with two M's. Spelled with two M's. But as I said before, we have a great show. Case closed. Criminal charges will help Trump in 2024. Let's go. Warning: some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Warning!
What's,
Yes, indeed. What's up,
what's up? What's up?
Mr. Dr. Wallace?
Dr. Wallace. Well, that's good. I
Um,
can forget. I'm also a doctor,
yeah. Well, sure. LAR, how's it going?
What's going on, man? I'm enjoying this and Kaizo's shenanigans. He got his master's in baiting.
Oh, excellent. Dating out
Uh,
there. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as you continue to come in, as you continue to like and share, let me go ahead and remind you that this is Case Closed, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Sunday. The place to be. We're talking about a highly relevant topic, interesting, an important part of the news lately. Former President Donald Trump was charged with 4 counts connected to the widespread efforts to overturn the 2020 election, allegedly. Uh, there are many counts that he's been charged with. However, 4 of them have to do with that insurrection, January 6th, and the things that surround that. So the indictment was filed by Special Counsel Jack Smith. I saw this and I laughed. I was like, of all the names, LAR, of prosecutors that you don't want to come after you, like Jack Smith, man, that's
you
Agent
got,
Smith
you
right
got
there.
go
He's
by
the
the
company man.
Matrix. You got
This guy
the Matrix is
lives
real.
and
Like,
breathes the law since he was 6 years old. He has been sharpening his pencils the same way for the past 36 years. Jack Smith. anyways, other than the fact that his name is Jack Smith, if you look at the case that he brought against Trump, it's actually rather detailed to the degree we can argue the actual what he was actually charged with, but they have all these lists of phone calls and conversations and documents and all this very airtight document wise. But let's just start like this, okay? Legalities aside, Kaizo, legalities aside regarding how the court will actually find things and evidence and all those rules. Given the what we see, do you think it is fair to say that Trump was trying to defraud the American people and and overturn? Uh, I say yes, right? You know, but
yeah,
what do you say, Kaizo? Let's start there. Forget the legalities. What do you think? You think he was trying to do some stuff? Yes, go ahead.
yeah. Of course, right? Like, if you're in that position, you would have to be crazy if you're not, you wouldn't have got to that position if you weren't into some shady shit. Ultimately, yes, I think he was trying to defraud the people, and I do think at the same time, all of them do that all the time. The difference is, well, are they going to come for you? Have you made enough enemies on the powerful oppositions or not? And I think if you're someone who gets things done, especially at this level politically, 100%, right? No one gets there just by being the good guy. You get there by being the strong, powerful guy who has powerful connections and is willing to get their hands dirty, or at least have people that will do it for them.
Okay. Well put there. Your short answer is yes. Yes, he was trying to do some stuff. They all do it. Dr. Thunder, what do you think about that? Do you think that legalities aside, and let's say um, if we just look at the court of public opinion and what is kind of known, and you're just coming from Mars, will it be fair to say, hey, this guy was trying to overturn an election, defraud the people, and such? What do you think about that?
Yeah. So I basically agree with Kaizo. Um, I don't know how. Yeah, you definitely have to be shady to get to the place. To become the president. You have to be all kind of shady, and he definitely has done plenty of shady stuff, and they all do plenty of shady stuff. Part of me wants to think that he's not particularly he's a pretty kind of shoot from the hip kind of guy. And so part of it to me is how intentional was this? Was this really intentional or was it reckless because he's kind of a shoot from the hip guy? Was he just kind of going with the flow, just doing whatever occurred to him, saying whatever he thinks that's going to, um, you know, push something in a particular direction, not necessarily thinking about the consequences, only considering getting power, preventing others from getting power? Or was it specifically because he was like, hey, let me do some illegal stuff here. Let me do some shady stuff to try to win this election. Was it that, or was it like, I'll just do whatever I need to do? And both are wrong, but one, in my mind, is a little more believable. So,
Yeah, so well put there. Now, there are two things I would like to just say about that because that sparks my interest there regarding Trump shooting from the hip. Two things. Number one, he is used to jumping from the frying pan to the fire and being at the edge of some crazy disaster and going bankrupt several times and so on and so forth, and playing at the edge of ethics and law and so on and so forth, right? So if I just kind of put myself in, okay, understanding that particular aspect of human character, right? This is just Wednesday for Donald Trump, right? Now it's a Wednesday at the highest level ever. This is the magnum opus or whatever, right? But it's just it's just doing same stuff he's always been doing, ending up in the news in some kind of a bad way, screwing somebody screwing him, right? So, and I think I agree with you that it is kind of from the hip, number one. But number two, it's a very Donald Trump type of thing. To do it this way. But one particular nuance about the from the hip, I think is also quite careful because if you, the reason why he was not being, I think part of the reason why he was not charged with inciting the insurrection, because he was actually careful with what he said, right? So I think that while you would not have lasted long being this crazy saber rattler if you don't know how far is it a little too far, right? So I think he has that sense, but he shoots from the hip. And this is just Wednesday for him. But anyways, LAR, what do you think? Do you think that this guy was trying to pull some shenanigans? What do you have to add here besides the legal aspects, which we'll get into?
He went from reality TV to running for president. Enjoy the show. I mean, that's what happened. People know that Donald Trump cheats to win. He said it when they were talking to him about his taxes. Like, y'all got a problem. Y'all should change the tax code. So at the end of the day, and I hate to say it this way, it doesn't matter if he did it purposely or not. The American public doesn't care. And he's still going to run for president. Because he's not, okay, this is his scandal. You can tie January 6th to that. When Hillary Clinton was running, guess what? She had the Benghazi scandal. Prior to that, she had the scandal with trying to say on the campaign trail that Barack Obama needed to be assassinated. John Edwards had the sex scandal. Bush had the war crimes scandal and going to the wrong doggone country. That Bush Jr. Barack, they just keep saying that Michelle's a guy and he like white women, so that's not necessarily a big scandal. But Bill Clinton had, what you call that, Monica Lewinsky. Joe Biden, of course, has the crime bill and his crackhead son, who don't fit his own bill, who never did. But we can go back to Watergate and past that. All these presidents and presidential candidates have scandals. It's just this one, he ain't backing out. John McCain had a doggone scandal when he was running and threw Sarah Palin in the mix, and she had a scandal. So it's part of the political process. Like, I don't think the public takes it seriously now.
Hmm. This is so you really think that the people obviously that are with Trump, Trump once said, I can shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and and people will still follow me, right? So the diehards are going to be with him, and the people whom are against him, uh, it's not going to increase their rank simply because he got charged with this stuff. Just wanted to, could you just confirm that? That's what you're saying, basically, is you think that it's
Yeah,
not gonna, it's a wash.
yeah, because in essence, you can say he alluded to doing something, but are they going to have anything concrete with his name on it and the date? No, it's just going to be a bunch of hearsay. And it's rightful to have the hearsay because Donald Trump said a lot of crazy stuff. But guess what? America is a crazy place. People make up what they want to make up from whatever they hear. So he's got a lot of wiggle room. This is not a beyond a reasonable doubt situation. This is, he could possibly, perhaps. I mean, if you put this with that, yeah, that ain't gonna win in court. They just stalling so he can't run, and he gonna still run.
Hmm. Indeed, not guilty, not guilty, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead and click the like button, share, super chat, okay? And super thanks for the replay, gang. Ain't that right, Dr. Thunder? We're talking about Donald Trump, okay? Charged with 4 counts in connection with the widespread efforts to overrun the 2020 election. Indictment was filed by special counsel Jack Smith. And so far, it seems I like what, LAR, the points that you made there regarding the crazy kabuki show with all the crazy scandals and that things tend to return to quote unquote normal afterwards is something that is particularly interesting about, let's say, America. Now, in other words, it actually works, is basically what I'm saying is every time it's always the end of the world, right? This person, Clinton is going to do Bush's guys, that and whatever, the world hates us because of Bush or what. And it's like these crazy Karens. They like to come out, right, and fight each other every 4 years or anytime they get the opportunity. Then they go back home and drink iced tea. It never actually ever goes anywhere, which is perhaps a good thing about like the system actually works. Institutions work. Because if this kind of crap was happening, let's say in China all the time, where there's just all kinds of crazy talk and charges and this and that, the regime will not last. But anyways, just a comment there on perhaps praising the American democracy. I know that's not what you said, LAR, but but I'm sure you wouldn't mind that aspect. Now, moving on, Kaiser, right? There is regarding the actual charges here, okay? Can you let's talk about the documents, okay? The overarching thing here is he was not charged with inciting an insurrection, and this is generally what the federal government does in the sense that if you do something such as incite an insurrection or you are a drug kingpin, they don't necessarily just come at you with you're a drug kingpin or you incite an insurrection charge, right? This is a well-known thing. They come at you with tax evasion, this document, this, that, the other, right? So what do you think about the solidity of that charge about hiding documents and again, really pick one of these 4 indictments, okay, and get into it because the question is, how valid are these? Will they hold up in court? So on and so forth. Go ahead, guys.
Yeah, so shout out. So actually, let me use the latest charge, right? So, Agent Smith recently actually put in a couple more charges, and one of the new charges actually obstruction. It's under obstruction of justice on evidence destruction. And again, notice it wasn't that he destroyed evidence; it was that he attempted to destroy evidence, meaning regardless whether he did it or whether the evidence is there or not, he attempted to do it. So the new charges are on Trump and also his one of his aides, Oliveira, right? So the charge is that on the 22nd of, I believe, July, Oliveira went. Trump was kind of a subpoena was issued, and he was told, okay, we need to get some video evidence of this club and the surveillance footage. On the 27th, this Oliveira guy, one of the aides, told another employee called employee number 4, hey, the boss wants us to destroy the videotapes. And so what he's being charged with is actually obviously facilitating that whole process and him being the boss. Now, of course, they don't actually have anything strong there. There was no mentioning of his name in any of the recordings. There is phone calls where he's talking to someone for a period of time, but there is no specifics about what was in that conversation because obviously data protection and other stuff going on in there. So what they can try to get him on is that he was the person that everyone understands to as the boss, right? Given the context of everything. And one of the employees, employee number 4, is willing to testify and is working with Agent Smith to take Trump down. So again, notice it's irrelevant whether he did or did not destroy the evidence. And also there is footage, and this is the funny thing, that's why they kind of changed it. There is footage, and the footage shows let's say less boxes coming back into this boxes, I guess, having tapes or other things, less boxes coming back into the storage room than left. So of course that's part of the evidence of, well, something was destroyed, or at least there's conspiracy to destroy the evidence. So that's what is being charged on right now. And it's an airtight case so far based on the evidence on that specific point. The main thing is Trump isn't really involved unless you can get him on the boss logic.
Yep, and the boss logic is the federal government is quite adept at using the boss logic. Their statutes are written generally to to go after bosses and such. And to that point, Dr. Thunder, going after the boss, charging the United States president, former United States president, running for president again, and so on and so forth. Let me make a statement, and I'm going to ask you the question. But before, let me state that really the question is it a good idea to charge the former president? The statement I'm going to make is regarding this: you're a kingpin or a bad person, or you did something like insurrection, and you're just a known bad guy, right? And then we're going to charge you with some ancillary things, what we can get away with, whether it be taxes or whatever it may be, to put you away. And typically it's a good way of making an example out of somebody, right? You go after a celebrity over taxes so that these crazy plebs don't start getting ideas, right? So we're going to go after Wesley Snipes. We're going to get him. And it's a good example, right? What I don't really see the example that will be made here with Trump. It's almost like, is it an example for anyone else that happens to be running for president? It's like the presidential example, because I think that the common American is not going to get in the place of trying to overturn elections or running for president. Now, that is just my kind of background statement here. But the question still is, and Dr. Thunder, go ahead, is it a good idea to charge the president? What could be the good? Because there's always a cost. There's some cost. Perhaps you could elucidate the con, if you see any con. But what are the pros?
Well, yeah, I don't think it's a good idea. It's not a good precedent. And in fact, when the shoe was on the other foot, and there was even a mention or a potential threat of charging someone that was even running for president, or was president, or past president, or whatever, the Democrats went crazy. So it's interesting how, although not much time has passed, they seem to think this is totally kosher. And maybe a positive that could come out of it is, so you're teaching, I don't know, maybe it's it's a signal to the public that nobody's above the law. One of those kind of silly things, when actually everyone knows that there's a lot of people that are above the law. We just don't make a habit of talking about it very much, because that'd be a pretty sad state of affairs if we all knew that that's not a true statement, that nobody's above the law. We know that people are above the law, but that we were actually talking about it all the time. It'd probably be pretty depressing. Um, so I suppose it's good to at least to create uh, something at least to point at to say, you know, yeah, you actually know that that's hogwash, and there actually are people that are above the law, but in public, we're going to talk about it this way. We're going to talk about it like it's not actually the case. And see, matter of fact, we're charging the president. See, so I suppose that's a that's a positive thing. But um, something that's interesting about this is you have a situation where there's a lot of um, technicality. It's hard to get them on the direct thing kind of issues in these charges, and which is similar to what's going on with Andrew Tate. And if folks didn't already learn, uh, when it's high profile like this and it's not a slam dunk, it may actually be positive for the person being charged, because Andrew Tate's popularity even soared even from where it was. And I think we saw a bump in Trump's the way that he was polling. When it was indicated that he was going to be indicted, or they were going to come up with the charges or whatever, he got a bump in his. So I think the general public are sort of aware that this stuff is phony, all of these strategies, and here's the thing. I'm not necessarily saying that there's nothing valid about the charges. There might be valid stuff about charges in both cases, but you do understand that when you go after somebody so aggressively and you talk about them the way that they talk about those two guys so aggressively, and you compare that to similar sort of situations with others that seem to be on code, they're on their team, everybody knows that there's a difference. So even if these two guys are totally guilty, people still have the sense that the way the optics of this don't look good. It looks like they're trying to that they are willing to sell out in any kind of ethics, any kind of being impartial. The law, law is blind. All of that kind of stuff. All of that stuff is out the door. So even if you get these guys on these charges, even if there is something valid, it doesn't look good.
Mm-hmm. So you're more on the seeing the cons side. Makes sense. Makes sense. Makes sense. So charging the president, the former president, running for president, and there are not a lot of restrictions when it comes to this kind of electoral politics type stuff, which is rather interesting. In other words, this doesn't stop him from running. It's like, let's say he got found guilty for one of the minor things, and he got charged, and he got kind of sentenced to like 180 days in jail, and he's in jail, and he wins. It's actually legit, like like I think there was I don't know, I think it was a Chicago mayor or somebody, and it wouldn't surprise me, LAR, right? That won he was in jail and he kind of won the election. So I think that's great. I think that's great for democracy, a small d democracy, kind of like populist democracy. That, hey, you want to vote for someone in jail? Yeah, let them decide that the crime doesn't matter. All good. I'm down for that. Now, LAR, do you think it's a good idea to charge former president? Do you think there's more harm than good done? Well, what are your thoughts here? You already mentioned before, need I say that you don't think that it matters at all. People are just doing their little Karen dance, blah, blah, blah. But do you think there's any harm done here? Do you agree with Dr. Thunder that actually there's going to be a lot of benefit? Um, Andrew Tate now has street cred, kind of, Go ahead.
I think it's ridiculously stupid because of the timing. So you mean to tell me you waited 2.5, 3 years plus, and now you're going to indict him a couple of months before the election? At the same time, he was the former president, and you're the United States government, and it take you this long to get some kind of flimsy evidence that you can lock him up for, and you're gonna go to trial for this, and you're probably gonna lose, and he's probably gonna still run, and he's probably gonna win, and diplomatic immunity is still a thing. So because he was a president at the time, because Biden didn't get sworn into what? It was later than usual because of all of this. So is it some shady business? Yeah. But the problem is the government isn't on the up and up about how they're doing it. And it's plain to see. And you got other countries watching. It's like, I thought America was smarter than this. Because if you're going to lock them up, you should have locked them up a year ago for like 3-4 years. Now you want to play this game? It's like, oh, okay. So is this what America does? Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. It screams stupidity. It screams insecurity. It screams fear. And it screams that, you lost the country already. Because no matter how you slice it, even if you were 100% right, this is just prime real estate for conspiracy theorists all over the world, just because of the timing. Just because of the timing. And they're not going to do anything at the end of the day. Did Hillary Clinton go to jail from Benghazi? No. Did Bill Clinton go to jail and get impeached? No. Did what is his name? Bush go to jail for war crimes? No. What president went to jail? Did Nixon? I know Nixon got kicked out, but did he go to jail?
Nope.
Nope.
So, what exactly is it? So, by precedence, he's still going to be free for the election. And the dumbest part of this to me is America likes a story. So you basically turn an oligarch into an underdog and let the people get even crazier about it. It's dumb. It's completely dumb. And by the way, before I finish, and guess what? And this is the tip of the dumb stuff. He appointed most of these judges. So where you gonna send them? To a judge that he put there? You really think they're gonna turn on him and he got him to? It's like, come on, man. Him and his hair was 5 steps ahead of this dumb stuff 4 years ago. But I'm done.
Nice one. Yeah, it might be a good saga if it continues and it gets into the appellate system and there's appeals and this and that and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it might provide good political fodder for years to come. So, former President Donald J. Trump appeared in federal court in Washington on Thursday for the first time to face charges that he conspired to remain in office despite the 2020 election loss, pleading not guilty at the hearing conducted in the shadow of the Capitol, where his supporters fueled by his lies. I'm reading from the New York Times, by the way. It's kind of funny. His supporters fueled by his lies and rampaged to block the peaceful transfer of power. Good stuff. So, Kaizo, just real quick on the question on the table, do you think it's a good idea? What could be the good benefit here of the example? Dr. Thunder, in terms of mentioned, the making an example of, or perhaps redeeming your name, right? As a prosecutor, these federal agencies, the law enforcement agencies and intelligence community, they're going to redeem their name somehow by going this far, right? Like you won't even, that kind of thing, right? Redeem their name amongst a particular block, which would be a very narrow-minded political reason to do something like this. But anyways, the question, Kaizo. Good idea to indict a president, former president?
I mean, this is a terrible idea, right? It's like, but at the same time, I kind of get why they're doing it and the constraints that they're doing it. They're not going to do it to someone on U.S. Foreign policy violations, right? They're not going to do it to Bush. They're not going to do it to Obama. They're not going to do it to Hillary Clinton on the U.S. policy, foreign policy violation aspects, right? They will leave that parts alone because ultimately the U.S. is kind of one there, and it's more of the domestic stuff that they might indict someone on. So that kind of leaves certain questions to ask. Is it a good idea? Look, I don't think it's going to cause so much chaos because ultimately, I don't really see this thing going in the way that the left are seeing it going. Right? As Elia mentioned about judges and all that kind of stuff. However, there is a grand jury involved in this case, right? And you can never really trust grand juries, right? A bunch of people that no one knows and all that kind of stuff there. But the point here that I'm going to bring in is that I don't think it's going to be that problematic. I think this is, as you said, it's a Wednesday, right? It's gonna disappear no matter what happens. But at the same time, I don't think you're setting the right precedents. Pun intended, right? It's like if you're the president of a country, in this case, the reported strongest economy, strongest military, I think a president needs to have certain leeways, right? It's like you need a strong bad man to run things at some point, as long as those bad things aren't systemic towards, let's say, the people of that nation. Let's say it was some crazy racist that instills certain, um, draconian measures against specific ethnic groups. Okay, fine, that's actually causing problems. But him just doing a couple personal things to win, to have power, that's the kind of president you want. I think America is drunk on its own democracy. It's like it's acting a bit like wine. You know how like certain alcohols can't get beyond 14% during the natural fermentation process. After that, it starts to kill itself. The yeast starts to die in its own high alcoholic content. I think that's where America has reached. Right? It's America is slowly now beginning to start equilibrize where it is. It's going to start killing a little bit of the things that made it great. Yeah.
Nice. Good model there. You know, that liberalism writ large. In other words, freedom, right? Writ large. The pursuit of order, truth, getting along has reached saturation point. And the latest manifestation called wokeness is the death throes of a particular blah blah blah. Okay. Let's take a little side break here because we're gonna get back to whether or not Trump believed that the election was stolen and say some specific things regarding this particular election and it being stolen or not, the conspiracies behind that, and whether maybe Trump, in other words, let's say Trump really did believe the election was stolen and he was really out there fighting, and now he's getting charged for fighting to restore his blah blah blah. That'd be an interesting to kind of look at. But if you guys don't mind, I just want to take a little turn here. Room temperature superconductivity. Okay, that's something. Okay, what's superconductivity? Okay, conductivity is, you have a current going through a wire, like a copper wire, for example, and there's resistance. Okay, there's resistance. This resistance produces heat, right? Because there's electrons. You can imagine it trying to move, and it bumps up against other atoms in there, and then things shake up and heat up, and so you're looking for things that are more conductive or with less resistance. Superconductivity is that property or a particular state of matter at particular temperatures and pressures that the electron just freaking flows. Okay, superconductivity. We can kind of understand why that might be a good thing. Now, there's room temperature superconductivity, which is, hey, okay, beyond doing it with some kind of special elements at certain temperatures, can we just get it at room temperature? That way, in my data center, I'm not spending so much to cool these copper wires and whatnot, and things are smooth and efficient, right? Pretty simple in terms of conceptually what this superconductivity thing is. And there's been a recent kind of perhaps breakthrough. Somebody wrote a paper, somebody saw something, right? It's kind of funny, the pictures that are coming and the evidence is kind of like coming in like UFO or Bigfoot footage. Just like, like why are you taking the picture of the freaking thing at that angle? But anyways, Kaizo do you have anything to say about the possible, number one, do you think this is something, is this a real thing, or not? Similar to the kind of cold fusion thing that they claimed, and we kind of talked a little bit about it. In this other case, there's something that will be huge, right? In terms of just in the simple kind of electron through a wire thing that I talked about. I haven't talked about the diamagnetic kind of maglev. Basically, if you put a superconductive stuff on top of a magnet, it kind of floats on top of it. So there's all that kind of crazy space type shit that can happen. Sorry for the.
Yes, let's start with the crazy.
Oh,
Let's start with the crazy stuff. Like if this is
yeah, go
real,
ahead.
right? It means in the next 50 years, you might be able to even let's say create trains that just levitate on top of a magnetic uh train track, right? Just levitating there, zero friction. Um, yeah, so just kind of give more clarity on what this superconductivity is, right? It's like most things have something called electrical conductivity, which is really just the resistivity, the inverse of the resistivity, right? Meaning we don't directly measure how fast things travel. We measure how slowed down they are, right? So when you have something that's superconductive at a certain temperature, it's called critical temperature, and pressure, you can basically get that effect that you talked about, right? Stuff that's floating around on magnets. This zero resistance, meaning electrical charge, right? DC, direct current, electrical current can actually pass through it without any energy loss. Meaning, right, you won't need all these transformers when you're, as many of them, right, when you're transferring energy from in the grid. You won't need so much of the infrastructure that we have today can be reduced because the energy loss is going to be crazy small. The only energy loss you'll get is maybe like, just transferring through certain generators and stuff like that. So already, just think of it as energy efficiency is going to be limited, or rather it's going to be increased, right? Also when it comes to everything else, right? Your speakers, right? Any kind of electronics, microphones, basically anything that works with the electromagnetic spectrum is going to be enhanced, right? Much cheaper, better frequencies, better conductivity in general for batteries. Like battery technology is going to boom so much because now you got like the moment you have superconductivity, you also get obviously supercapacitors being able to charge and discharge, zero loss on batteries, all that kind of stuff. So it's more or less the holy grail of I'll say experimental physics right now. So with this sort of research that's coming out, it is a model, and models are fine, right? And they usually work. We know enough about density of states and quantum physics to make good, accurate models. But I'm gonna wait until real, repeatable, reliable, experimental, let's say designs have been realized. Because one of the limitations of stuff like this, when they tell you something like a room temperature, well, it's not gonna be room pressure, or it's only, let's say, superconductive in one of the axes. So let's say you got the three dimensions, right? X axis, Y axis, which are perpendicular to each other. Then you have the Z coming out of plane. The problem is it's not going to be superconductive in all three planes. It will have to be one plane, which is fine. But that means, obviously, let's say if you're shooting electrical current across that plane, you need to make sure that that wire is super straight so that it's not being lost through all the other angles. So there will always be some kind of cost benefit analysis. You're not going to get everything. Room temperature, pressure, and all the three uh, known dimensional axes.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. And we'll get back to this in a little bit regarding kind of taking advantage of things in terms of not having to go to Harvard, for example, right, to get stuck in some stupid PhD program. No offense to the PhDs, but I'm talking about if you want to make technological breakthrough, right? Especially with emphasis on the experimental side of things, experimental engineering, material engineering side of things. That really these you know thinking that you have to go to some particular school, go do some PhD in physics, that's where the answer is. And shout out to the super chat, Dr. Thunder. Go ahead and acknowledge that. I'll continue here in a second.
Thank you very much to the super chatter.
Dom DeMarco.
Thank you very much. Super Chatter says, this is Carlo. You guys are talking fringe science. Are they right about aliens? Because we far away from such tech.
It is rather interesting that right at this, okay, so there was kind of the cold fusion, and then there's a lot of alien disclosure thing that has been going on, right? Um, Even if you're not paying close attention to it, there's been a lot of like, oh, UFOs, and we saw this, and yes, we're going to release some information, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. Plus, also this zero room temperature superconductivity. It's all kind of interesting. Maybe one has to do with the other. Maybe part of this is alien tech that they're going to slowly kind of release over the next 30 years. But this is the backstory. They're going to make it seem like, oh, we came up with it. I don't know. My mind is just going on there. But I don't know if you wanted to
No, I agree.
respond to that.
I don't think it's going to be linear. I actually think technology. Forget Moore's law, which is not even a law; it's just an observation. But I actually think that we're going to be in a precipice in a moment where we just get some Star Trek, Stargate level technology within less than 200 years. I really don't think we're going to do this whole linear thing very long. This is just my intuition. Obviously, there's no proof of what I'm saying, but just based on some of the stuff that's dropping, some of the knowledge and information, we really are at the edge of, let's say, human level science. So some of this stuff that's breaking through, like this, if this superconductive stuff is real, this is the stuff that's going to allow us to even reach cold fusion, right? Because it's all related, right? It's all to do with,
Quantum
maintaining.
computing, and let me add another crazy one. The quantum computing, right? Quantum computing requires that you're able to keep this qubits, this particular things in a very stable state, right? Which,
Right.
superconductivity, my engineering mind is thinking, you're the physicist, correct me if I'm wrong, will be
No loss.
applicable or will help, right?
Loss. Yeah. Yeah.
So even quantum,
superconductivity
So
is
if that
perfect for-
happens, it'll be kind of exponential, kind of crazy singularity type stuff, and it will make up for decades whereby we really haven't made a lot of atomic level discoveries, if you will. In other words, physical matter, as opposed to Facebook and YouTube and more apps. Is what we've been doing for the last 30 years. But anyways, shout out to the super chatter again. But let's get back to Mr. Donald Trump and the conspiracy. Do you think, LAR, that really Trump thinks this election was stolen? A, number one, because how could he lose? B, he had crazy MFers like Giuliani and 20 other crazy lawyers from New York telling him this crap, and there's like transcripts and stuff like and recordings of that stuff, and so on and so forth. Do you think it's possible that Trump really thought like, hey, these guys are trying to pull one over me, I gotta go over there, Mike Pence is a traitor, blah blah blah? What are your thoughts about that, Eliar?
I'm gonna add something about the superconductor thing to this conversation with Trump. Dave Chappelle had a skit about being a president and an alien coming by down named Bibble, inventing a bunch of stuff that we use in the modern day. And I find it funny that a week, 2 weeks ago, is the aliens, and then now we got superconductors. And at the same time, with the same damn materials that this planet has had this whole time. So either people really not pushing the envelope scientifically, or they're going to steal a whole bunch of people's stuff and say that the alien Bibble made it so it can't be, so a person can't get paid for it. Now, adding the Trump thing with the election, this is about flat out stupidity. Of course he could say somebody stole the election. Does everybody remember one night he was winning, and then for a week they couldn't count? The whole country could count, but like the last 3 states just couldn't count. Now we got to count Georgia, we got to count Nevada, we got to count again, and we got to count by hand, and we got to count again, and then we got to count Pennsylvania. It's like, wait a minute now. If somebody's winning and all of it, like just regular practical common sense. If somebody is winning a game and it goes into overtime while they're winning, and then it goes into double overtime while they're winning, and triple overtime while they're winning, and then all of a sudden they lose. Of course, somebody gonna say something's up. Of course, they're gonna say something's up. They gave them enough, enough reason to say no, y'all cheating. And this is the point. America should have never been so open in social media and media, because it just exposes how dumb this country is. Because you what you're telling me is you can do that in public and have all of these machines and all of this technology, but you can't freaking count. So, like, we got the biggest military, we got all the guns, we got planes that's supersonic, but see this machine right here, we went, this is hanging Chad 2.0. So it's like, you created this situation. And the damn near the same thing damn near happened when he won against Hillary. So this time he's on the losing end of it. So at the end of the day, yeah, he's got reason. And yeah, the reason is because America does dumb stuff. And we try to act like it's not stupid. So, of course he's got reason. Does it matter? No, because he's probably going to win again. The only thing I'm really upset about is you got two candidates who are combined damn near 160 something years old. You really think they give two shits about fixing anything? They finna die. We fighting about people who don't want to fix anything, who've been living high on the hog forever, and they have no plans of fixing America. Biden never did, and Trump never does. It's just to say I was president. And they gonna do anything to be president. They ain't really, and they not gonna do shit when they're in office. So this is just a whole shit show. I'm sorry for all the cussing. My bad.
Dr. Thunder, what do you think about the election being stolen? And we're playing a little bit with his mental state or his belief at the time. Do you think, it's plausible that he actually thought this was some injustice here and he had to correct it? What are your thoughts about the whole election was stolen saga?
Yeah, so I think he did get some bad advice. He had some bad counsel. He probably had some good counsel also, but the good counsel was saying, you lost, you shouldn't pursue this. The bad counsel was saying, but you're still saying that I have a chance. Right? So he went with the, so you're saying that there's a chance side. It's like the what movie was this? What is this, Dumb and Dumber? And Jim Carrey asks the woman, I can't remember that actress's name. He asks her, so what's the chance of a guy like me and a girl like you getting together? And she says 1,000,000 to 1. And then he says, so you're saying I have a chance? Yes. So here's
that one in the spank bank. My bad.
Yeah. So it's goodness. So it is it's messed up. But as soon as you hear that there's a possibility, depending on how bad you want it, you might take that chance. So I think if he's guilty of something, that's more likely what he's guilty of. Is basically kind of not really caring about anybody else and just being willing to do whatever necessary to become president again. Okay. Now, there were a lot of questions and there was a lot of sketchy stuff that went on with these machines and with counting and with the and we know in every election, dead people are voting and all kinds of stuff. We know that stuff happens, but it never has gotten beyond a certain percentage of the vote that by itself would have made the difference. Okay, so he so the counsel that he received was such that this time that goofy stuff that happens every election, we're going to make a big deal about that because we think it's gotten beyond a certain point and X, Y, and Z. So and it was kind of crazy because Biden was like in his basement most of the time, was forgetting his first name and stuff like that. There was all kinds of stuff like this, and it didn't see he wasn't aggressive about campaigning, none of that, and somehow he still gets the record number of votes, more than Obama. And I'm like, I mean, it sounds like it's some weird stuff. I mean, it does sound crazy. So it does sound unlikely that Biden would have been able to do that and everything else. But I think that you have to take into account, it's hard to minimize the effect that the pandemic had. I think that's what killed him off, as it were. That's what and it was right at the right time and everything else. And you can NWO, tinfoil hat, whatever. You can go several directions with that as far as global entities and their interest in the presidential election in the United States. I mean, you can go different ways. But yeah, I don't know that it was this sort of nefarious plot, but I do think that the guy was probably fast and loose and was like, look, so you're saying I have a chance.
Shout out to Big Biz 800 in the chat, says I'm voting DeSantis because basically because of Florida, right? What's going on in Florida? The idea of looking at the state executive, you have these governors, and you look at their state, you look at the outcomes in their state, and you make a judgment on that. Not a bad place to start from. There are some issues with that, generally speaking, in the sense that it might not be a transferable set of circumstances. The state and the federal government, very different kind of entities, where you have gridlock in Washington versus certain kinds of things that you can do at the state level. And then also, you might just be a good administrator of a particular type of set of solutions that works for a particular state, right? But you're not overall a good executive. Okay. You just so happen to, oh, here are the set of solutions that work in Florida. Oh, yeah, I was a good implementer of this set, but you're not necessarily a good executive overall when you get moved to a different type of situation. But those comments, your comments sparked some thought there, Big Biz. Shout out to you. Now, Kaiser, what are your thoughts here regarding Trump's state of mind and his election being stolen? You think maybe he convinced himself that this thing might be going on? Definitely had this idea that, hey, you know what? If there's a chance, as Dr. Thunder said, no matter how small, I'm the guy that's going to try to pull through, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to go down in history. It's going to be the greatest, biggest. Everybody loves it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, okay, so I actually think more or less along what Dr. Thunder was saying. I think he was getting some advice, and look, the reality is you can't really know if the other side stole the elections, right? But you know yourself, you know that you're playing shady. So you assume the other side may also have played shady. So if that's the case and you lost knowing that you won a previous time, you're going to be kind of skeptical. You're going to be like, let me at least try to figure out the game and to extent, is it true that I actually lost or they won? And if I can, figure out some shady ways to, skew some numbers or create some falsify, evidence towards my side. I think that's more or less of it, right? I don't think whether he was defrauded of the presidency is a main issue for him, right? The main issue is he wanted to be president again, and if the evidence was in his favor, or just required a slight tugging or nudging towards his favor, he would have been willing to take it. Main thing was power,
Indeed.
not whether he was defrauded.
Yeah. And before I move on here, shout out to you, Big Biz. Yes, track record is important. Just talking about that particular piece of the resume. Don't put too much on that aspect of the track record in the state. Look at track records in other aspects too, right? Other aspects, because the state might not be transferable. That's all I'm saying. So, shout out to you, Dr. Thunder, regarding the question, if I were to go back to that superconductivity thing again, right? Because last week we talked about, I don't know if it was last week, but last week or a couple of weeks ago, we discussed the affirmative action situation and the fact that now that it's no longer there, there's certain avenues which are no longer available, generally speaking. They were not available to Black men generally while affirmative action was there anyways. But now that particular cul-de-sac has been shut off. Okay, cool. And then there's this thing about superconductivity, blah, blah, blah. And I was alluding to the fact that in experimental stuff, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Kaizo, I'm trying to mix up some brew here for conversation. In experimental stuff, it's not like you have to go to some high-level institution to get the knowledge or to get the to tinker with stuff, especially in certain kinds of material science. It's not everything is large hadron collider level experimentation, right? And so on and so forth.
Right.
And then it's like, okay, how even in the institution, now this is a vague intuitive crap I'm doing here, but even within the idea of, okay, education and, taking advantage of certain trends and being in the forefront and becoming the next billionaires by being the next material engineers, okay, is this something that is inherently closed off to the Black community, the people whom are not at the top of whomever they may be, people whom are trying to get there, and you have all these gatekeepers in the world of quote unquote regular science, but you don't have to go through them. If you can get my idea, maybe I'm going to ask you, Kaizo, to formulate a question to Dr. Thunder about what I'm trying to say here, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think I understand your question. So let me kind of begin by saying, in the realm of material science, materials physics, you don't even need to understand physics or chemistry to actually do it experimentally in the labs, right? This is like just basic electronics, the stuff you can learn in like 1 month. It's basic. It's really basic stuff, right? I had a friend who studied biochemistry, and she did a master's in nanotechnology, and she got obviously a distinction, and she's not particularly smart, right? Or anything like that. The point I'm trying to make here is this: if you have enough money, and money, I don't mean a lot of money, I just mean a couple $1,000,000, right? And by you, I mean an institution, a Black institution, African institution, or something like that. You can invest in the machines. Like all you need is just some scanning electrical microscope, a few, let's say, high temperature machines here and there, and you can actually set up a lab. You don't need to do everything yourself, because what you're alluding to with the large hadron collider and stuff like that is you get basic experimental results, which are all written on research papers. You can get free of charge if you hack it, or you can pay for it, right? It depends on how you want to do it. You just go look at the latest research, see if you can copy what they did, or add some changes here and there, and you can be at the forefront of a lot of these materials physics and materials engineering. You do not need some crazy level, machines that cost hundreds of millions of dollars at all. That's where the collaboration element comes in, meaning Black and African people have potential to actually get into this whole materials physics stuff before it gets saturated.
Okay, cool. I think thanks for putting some bricks on the wall there. So Dr. Thunder, This is a question, purely empirical question of like, okay, do you know of, because I think back and I hear Tuskegee Institute in my mind as this guy is kind of talking, and I'm like, okay, um, you don't need billions of dollars. You could do some things. You could come up with stuff. It's not, you don't have to go to Harvard to study that blah blah blah. Does that exist right now? Let's say in the United States, where there's still black institutions that are kind of directed towards a particular area of, let's say, study or whatever it may be. If you get my question, Dr. Thunder, what is your answer?
Um, um, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not sure of the answer to that. I know that there are some black institutions that are focusing on music and entertainment. I'm sorry, but that definitely is the case. But I don't know
You're also
the answer.
represented in the critical studies area too, but go ahead.
Right. Go ahead, LAR. I think LAR has a
Okay.
better response.
As
Yeah, I
far as
guess.
HBCUs,
Do you think blacks are good enough for this? Go ahead, brother.
Oh no.
Yeah, you know what? We not African, black, Muslim, Christian, Hindu, Jewish guys who can't catch on. So I get it, but most HBCUs are specialized. So you got some that do engineering, some that do law,
Right.
some that do agriculture. So it depends. If you go to that place, absolutely. But if you go to the law one for engineering, you messed up. Yeah, some that do like nursing and medicine. So it just depends on which one. Like engineering, I would say, I know for sure Prairie View. I know for sure Prairie View does engineering. And there's a few that do architecture too. So it just depends on the school you're talking about.
Well, we'll put there. I mean, Dr. Thunder, were you done? I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, of course, HBCUs. There's some HBCUs that are doing what it is that you're suggesting. But that's not really what we're known for, is it? Which that's a different kind of problem. I might argue that, yeah, I don't have anything further right now.
So Kaiser, I know you wanted to add something here. It is kind of interesting because shout out to Chamath Palihapitiya, one of the kind of Silicon Valley dudes out there with his billions of dollars and whatnot. This is a guy who came from a particular, I think it's Waterloo University in Canada.
Outside of Toronto.
Not a. Yes, sir. Thank you. So it's not like, oh, great, it's not a Harvard or something like that, but it's got a good engineering program and so on and so forth. I also know that some schools, like let's say Cal Poly in California, produce better engineers than some like let's say Stanford in California. Okay. But Cal Poly is not an Ivy League, blah blah blah, that kind of stuff. So in this general world here of breakthrough in technology, you don't necessarily need to pass through certain institutional gates per se, and perhaps there's some opportunity in that regard. But go ahead, Kaiser. I don't know what you wanted to add.
No, you're right. Okay, so I'll give you an example, right? When I wanted to do masters, I went to Imperial College London. I applied, I got in, and they offered to pay for the master's course. Then there was another university, I'm not going to name it, but it was in a different country from the UK, and they offered to pay for the PhD program. And guess what? Right, I applied for plastic electronics, right? So solar cells, thermoelectric, and stuff like that. So heat to electricity, that kind of stuff. And it turned out it was exactly the same program The same people in Imperial College London were the same people I was working with. Meaning, money talks. The university that I applied for, the second one, that gave me the full PhD scholarship, they had money. They had all the facilities, and all the Imperial College people used to come do experiments there. So whenever we wrote research papers, they would even beg us, right? I'm exaggerating, but yeah, they would beg us to put their name on our papers, etc. Because we were actually doing cutting edge research. Like if you look at the solar cell research, actually, our university is probably among the top 5 in the world on something called perovskite solar cells. The point I'm trying to make here is this, right? If you get a well-funded university and you put people in charge of it that understand how to manage people, like Elon Musk type people, and you get talent that's just willing to work hard, you can do anything. And right now, I think this is just my intuition, but no, it's actually based on logic as well. But Africans and Black people, we actually have a chance to, let's say, imprint ourselves on cutting edge technology, and it's not even difficult to understand. It's not hard to do, and it's not as expensive as we think it is, right? A few million, I literally mean just a couple $1,000,000 is enough to set up a decent research center. We keep all the patents. And as Eliar alluded to earlier, we're not doing some crazy alien technology, meaning we will actually own the patents, right? Because one of the reasons why some people claim they can do crazy stuff, you cannot patent something that isn't part of the standard model of physics. Meaning you have to be able to understand, or rather other people have to understand what you're doing for it to be patented. So that's why he was alluding to the whole alien tech and stuff, and how they're going to pass other people's inventions off. But I'm just saying, if people are listening in and they have connections with certain government affiliates or institutional affiliates, research in materials physics and materials science is extremely easy. Okay, I say easy, but anyways, extremely easy. It's not that expensive, and any sort of change in there will actually basically drive the next economy, like the fourth industrial revolution. Because right now we're in the third industrial revolution, which is software based, and we're going back to hardware, and that's where all the breakthroughs are going.
Shout out to Dr. Thunder, checking his subscriber count to see whether he has crossed the 10,000 threshold. Shout out to the people that are subbing. As you come in, let him pass that. Go ahead and share the stream. Go ahead and throw it out there. Let's pass 10,000 as we bring this stream to a close. Now, former President Donald Trump, was charged with 4 counts in connection with the widespread efforts to overturn 2020 elections, allegedly. Allegedly, we've talked through everything, both internal, external. Every political campaign can be seen as a conspiracy to defraud the people of the United States. That's how, hence, it's a question of who gets charged, whom transgresses the powers that be in particular ways, and whom just does stupid things like Donald Trump does. Stupid from the perspective of maybe more like 98% of the population that is not used to being so much in the kitchen, right? In the kitchen with all the heat. But he grew up in the kitchen. This is what he does. He likes to be out there front and center, getting charged, charging, dodging bullets, whatever, almost dying, and all that kind of crap. And that Oppenheimer, has anybody seen Oppenheimer, by the way? I haven't.
I haven't seen it yet.
I'm waiting for the free release to come out.
LAR, no? Okay. Oppenheimer comes to mind because Oppenheimer is a crazy kind of guy. I don't know how he was portrayed in the movie, but there is a kind of Moynihan was also like this too, by the way. There is this kind of swashbuckling, crazy, intellectual, wild man type stuff. I added intellectual, it doesn't necessarily apply to Trump, but there's that whole wild man thing that is appealing to people for several reasons. Okay. And Trump has that market cornered. Trump is a stand-up comedian. And hence I agree a lot with what Dr. Thunder was saying when he was like, that's shooting from the hip. He reads the crowd. He's always saying the right things. People who, criticize him would use different words than I'm using right now. They would say that he's narcissistic child, blah blah blah, all the same thing. Yeah, he's looking at a crowd trying to make him come. Same thing, right? So that's what we've kind of talked about in this conversation. But to land the plane, it's more like a bet here. Do we think what are the chances, LAR, that this actually sticks? I think, for example, that it's going to be hard to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Trump knew that he lost it and then he was trying to defraud, right?
Wait, hang on, just
Now,
before you ask the question, I have something to ask.
go ahead.
Yeah. So, when is the next elections? Which year?
It's 24.
Right, 2024.
Yeah.
Did you say right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the the case is going to court in 2024, and you know how you can actually petition the courts, etc., to to allow you time to prepare, and and all these adjournments. I guess what I'm trying to say, it's irrelevant whether he wins or loses. I think the decision of him being president or not will be way before the case is finished. Meaning, if he's found guilty
Yeah.
and he's already the president, do you think he's going to go to prison? Of course not, right? And I think this whole thing is actually
This gives
helping his
him more
campaign because
reason
it's
to want to win. Now he's gonna take this thing real seriously
exactly.
now. He has to become president. anyways, ladies and gentlemen,
Exactly.
so beginning with LAR again, we're talking about, this indictment was filed by special counsel Jack Smith, by the way. Jack Smith in the federal courthouse in Washington. And LAR, do you think this thing will stick? I don't think it is going to be easy to prove some of the things. That's why they didn't hit him with the big kind of incitement thing anyways. He did all kinds of shenanigans, and I believe, just as all of us in the panel think, that he was trying to pull all kinds of fast ones. However, the legal system is not about chastising somebody. Okay, it's about proving certain things beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay, and I think in this particular case, here's my vote. I don't think this particular bad man, therefore let me use these other things, will actually stick on this case. What do you say, LAR? And then Kaizo and then Dr. Thunder. And your closing thoughts. Yeah, whatever.
Okay. I don't think it's gonna stick because I don't think they're trying to win. I think they're just trying to stall. That's all. To me, it's just a stall tactic. Like, we're gonna get a case against you. We're gonna drag it out. You can't campaign and be in court at the same time. Another motion, another injunction, another. I need more time. I got a lot of evidence. It's kind of like the SEC case against XRP. It could have been finished a long time ago, but they just kept dragging it out. So to me, it's just a political filibuster. And they're going to filibuster this thing and hopefully until after the election, right? But it's not going to work. And for closing, I would say Trump has the same mindset as, I would say, Vince McMahon. I forgot the original Nature Boy, not Ric Flair, and Floyd Mayweather. That was the business model of be polarizing, because the people that like you are going to buy a ticket to see you, but if the people that hate you will buy a ticket to see you lose. So that's how you get both people in the seats. So he already has his group that love him, and of course there's a group that hate him. But the group that hate him, ironically, just part of being an American, we have an affinity for somebody who could possibly be the bad guy. So some of the people that hate him are going to round up turning to his side. So it's like they've turned politics into WrestleMania. And now, he went from Hulk Hogan to Hollywood, and now he's the NWO. So it's like, oh my goodness, he's the bad guy, but I love him more. It's this is a this is a show built for somebody who's on reality TV. Like, I don't know why they did this, because you're dealing with somebody, you're trying to slander somebody in the public who's been in the public for at least 40, 50 years, doing dumb stuff, getting slandered and bouncing back. He bounced back from the Central Park Five. He bounced back from the divorce. He made sure he got divorced the next time before he can pay out alimony. He bounced back on that. Lifestyles of the rich and famous. All of the Trump towers that were falling apart, bounced back. The issue in Scotland, bounced back. I mean, I'm gonna run for president because I went against Barack Obama and said he was born somewhere else and he wasn't American, and he made him look foolish. So, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna bounce back and I'm gonna run for president. This is what he does. You're trying to play politics and reality TV with a reality TV veteran. This man more seasoned than the Kardashians at this. And he gonna win twice because of it. So that's my point.
Yes, he was literally in the WWE, right? He literally fought with Vince McMahon or something, or he's been. This is called kayfabing, by the way. Shout out to Eric Weinstein. He has this whole idea behind the WWE stuff, in the sense that, in many ways, many things that we do, right, Dr. Thunder, those meetings that you go to sometimes are all kind of like WWE, where we gather here to say things that we know are not necessarily true, but we are going to all pretend like it's true so that we can all clap at the right time, sing from the same hymnal, and then leave and go back to reality, right?
From your
A lot
generation,
of
it was WWF. How did you get bamboozled into WWE?
Yeah, I know it was WWF right then, right from the beginning, but I don't know what year Trump actually showed up, whether it was still WWF or WWE. But I've been watching, Macho Man and the Ultimate Warrior. But shout out. So, Mr. Kaizo, what are your closing thoughts on this and anything else that you want to add on the topics that we've discussed on former president getting indicted and shooting from the hip and whatnot? Go ahead. That was you, Kaizo.
He just dropped.
He just dropped. Oh, he just dropped from the. Okay, that might be a data thing, or it might not be a data thing. But I suspect that he's gonna come back.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Dr. Thunder, you can start. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, so this whole deal is goodness. Yeah, I think what LAR said. This is a reality TV guy, and so he's just playing reality TV in real life. The populist thing, he knows how to say. He just is an expert at saying this stuff that is controversial. Excuse me, that's controversial. That is going to get people talking. He knows how to press the buttons, and he's very good at that. And to your point from earlier, he bounces back. He's had a lot of stuff go on, and he bounces back. And I think the progressives in the liberal media, they think it's a good strategy to make fun of Trump because he's had a bunch of bankruptcies and failure this and failure that. That it's actually not a good idea for them to continue to bring that stuff up, because what that shows is that the dude is resilient, and no matter what happens, he's going to find a way. And when it comes down to it, would you rather have someone that has been out in the real world and got knocked around and figured out how to make it work, or some person that's been a career politician and has never really worked a day in their life on a regular job other than just playing politics. So that's not a good talking point for them. They should drop that talking point, trying to talk about him like, oh yeah, he's a failure. He really just started with millions of dollars from his daddy. He's really no good at X, Y, and Z. It's like, dude, that's not a good talking point. Because if what you're saying is true, and he's just, just has no aptitude, whatever. And I'm not saying that the guy's brilliant, but he knows how to do the reality TV thing, and that's what he's doing. So he's playing the card that he knows how to play, and he has played it masterfully. I mean, you have to give the cat credit. I mean, at some point you have to be like, yeah, well, he kind of does have something. He does know how to make deals. He does know how to get certain things done. And rather than trying to act like, all of that stuff is made up and all of that's fiction and he's really just this dude that has no skills, rather than talking like that, just acknowledge what it is that he's able to do and then try to strategize as something against that. But the reason that they can't do that is because the Democratic candidates are the most boring people on earth. Is the worst. Nobody wants to listen to them talk. It's like, oh my goodness, if I could be doing anything right now other than having to listen to them. So that's where I'm at with that. And to the point I was making earlier about Andrew Tate, you have a similar situation here. You have a situation where you're using some technicalities with the law to try to get somebody that you don't like. Okay? You don't like Trump. You don't like Andrew Tate. You're using some technicalities to try to get this cat. Now, I'll be the first person to say, I think I wouldn't want my kid around either one of them. I'm just telling you, I'm just being honest, because they have both done things that are against my own morality. Okay? But did they do anything that technically is illegal? I think the answer to that is no. But even if they did something that's on the edge, the way that the media has gone after both of them with such aggression and just a lack of concern or care for the optics, they just have such a deep hate for them. I think people can see that. I think everybody can see that. And they're like, well, man, why do they hate them so much? I wonder what it is that they're saying that is creating this passionate resentment for this dude, for these guys. And then when you start listening to them, it's like, well, wait a minute. If you just take this stuff for face value and not all the sort of supposed dog whistling and all of the other stuff, if you just take it at face value, it doesn't actually sound, why is this so terrible? Why is this so bad? So I think that they do themselves a disservice by looking like they're so biased. And now, again, I'm a third party guy. I didn't vote for Trump. I didn't vote for Obama. I'm third party. That's where I go. But I can also see why folks would like certain things that Trump offers. I can see that. So that's where I'm at.
Is the Dusty back or no? No.
Yeah, Dusty's back.
Yeah. Cool. Shout out to you, and you're gonna say your closing thoughts here in a second. Yeah, shout out to LAR regarding the haters. being very, are the people that you want in terms of publicity, blah blah blah. The haters will watch your videos, they will at your videos, they'll make reaction videos, don't they, LAR? But
Yes.
shout out to you too, Dr. Thunder. Shout out to you, Dr. Thunder, regarding Trump's skills. Like, for example, there's a, and I'm just taking a particular thing that just kind of caught my eye regarding, I'm into persuasion, selling, whatever, right? And Trump has a very good technique, which is kind of, it's called talking past the sale. In other words, like he came out and he said, I am going to stop the Ukraine war in one day, right? And typically, that form of talking is supposed to move the conversation to whether or not you can do it in one day and make it a foregone conclusion that you will do it. Okay. That's the whole
Right.
thing. And he does it systematically all the time. And this goes to a point that somebody made in the chat about it's not all shoot from the hip. When you live your whole life shooting from the hip, you're gonna develop an intuition for it. It's not just gonna be like, oh, just every moment is new. No, he has a system, he has a way of doing things. And he said that, and as a matter of fact, I was listening to some podcasts, and some people were talking like, okay, so he said he's gonna do these 4 things, but in other words, he said, I'm gonna call this guy and tell him this. I'm gonna call this guy, tell him this. I'm gonna call that third guy and say, hey, if he's gonna tell Putin, if you don't come to the table now, we're gonna keep giving these people more weapons and weapons you haven't seen, blah blah blah. Other people started saying, oh, but that'll then take weeks to do, blah blah blah. So you're already you're already giving in that he will do it. Now you're just arguing that, oh, it's not going to be that easy. How could he say it's that easy? But anyways, shout out to you, Kaizo. Okay, what are your closing thoughts on this whole thing here with regards to Trump, with regards to the technology and room temperature superconductivity or whatever you want to say? Go ahead. Final thoughts.
Yeah. So yeah, in this regards, right? I think what I would like to say is this, right? With the whole Trump situation, I think based on the timelines and how long cases take, he'll be present if he wins, right? Way before this case is finished. Meaning, this is a delay tactic. This is to prevent him from, let's say, being present at key opportune moments. It's just something to slow him down. But ultimately, I think it's gonna cause more polarization. And again, I agree with LR's point of view today. Again, right? It's whether they like you, love you, hate you, doesn't really matter, because they're the people who will be sharing your videos, making commentaries about your videos. And that is going to allow some people with a rational mind, or when I say rational, I mean unbiased mind, to view you at a different light, etc. So I think in terms of marketing, this is great. I don't think this is going to do him any political damage. The people that don't like him ain't going to change their minds, and the people that are in the middle might even have more chance to interact with his person. And in relationship with, let's say, the technology aspect, as I said before, right? I've called blacks and Africans low IQ before, but if I'm being honest and if I'm being logical, the main difference between us and them is we don't have very well funded institutions that periodically pushes out highly skilled individuals. And right now with technology, it's not about the highest IQ individual. That's not even that relevant. Those are the theoretical people. When it comes to real patents, it's based on experimentalists. And to be an experimentalist, you do not need to be the smartest tool in the shed. You don't need to be, right? That's not the point. You just need to be whatever standards, and we have way more than enough of those people. So I urge people that have money, people that are connected in certain institutions, we definitely should be building Afrocentric technology spaces. It doesn't cost that much to do in the latest technological spaces, and build startups, offshoots from the knowledge that we gain from these startups. So I say, yeah, there's a bright future for Afrofuturism. And in terms of Trump, I think if he wins, he's not going to prison, and if he loses, he might go to prison. And this is going to look bad for America, but I think America is still here to stand.
Okay, good job, good job. Not bad, not too bad today, sir. But yeah, go ahead, take us out, Dr. Thunder. What's coming up next in your channel? I saw Two Dads React said thousands disappeared. Was it early rapture? What's going on? I'm coming for you, but yeah.
Yeah, so that was the show from this past Thursday called Thousands Have Disappeared. And the show was about a significant reduction in insect population, something like down 40%, including many insects actually going extinct. And that's a strange occurrence. And then also a lot of animals disappearing and a lot of human beings disappearing. Um, and of course, the government is now releasing this information about, where they're sort of claiming that maybe there are aliens or something. There's this stuff that is going on right now. And my sense is that if it is the case that there are aliens or there are these things that we don't know fully about, they've known about them for, you know, 20 years, 30 years, whatever. They've known about them for a long time. But perhaps some event, some series of events, or something that they uh, think is going on or is going to happen cause them to have to, at least in some way, seem to release some sort of information about this. And so I don't know, that could be good or bad. We don't know. So you'll find out, I guess. But yeah, so that was that show, and that video is performing really well. Go ahead and check that out. Uh, Also, I had a panel show on Friday. Um, uh, does Anton Daniels have SBE fatigue? That's the name of the video. That one's also performing well. That was an open panel. And my channel is on the precipice of 9,000 subs. So I just need about 10 more subs and I'll get to 9,000 subs. Thanks for all the support, everybody. Steadily growing a little bit at a time. So thanks for everybody coming through and supporting. And Rolling Thunder, on my morning show, that's really growing. Folks dig those. And this week I have Dr. Thunder Quartet is doing a Thelonious Monk concert, and that's a 6 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time thing that'll also live stream on my channel. So that'll be happening. All kinds of great stuff happening. I'm interviewing Daryl Davis on Tuesday. That video will probably release on Saturday morning. So lots of heavy stuff happening. Thanks for the support, everybody. And we will, make sure you come to my channel this coming Wednesday for Getting Ish Done with Ike and Dr. Thunder, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we'll have one more case closed in a row on next Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure you come through and check those out. But that's our time. We'll see you next time. Peace out.
Peace.